In 1998, a team from the Ocean University of China decided to farm commercial marine fish right here in Xinjiang. Not freshwater fish, actual ocean seafood. In a landlocked wasteland with no sea, less than 10 millimeters of annual rain, and a brutal 30-degree daily temperature swing, the immediate result: nearly every single fish died. But they didn't quit. The crazy part isn't that they failed, it's that they kept going. And 25 years later, Xinjiang became northwest China's absolute largest seafood hub, churning out 184,000 tons in 2023 and exporting premium seafood straight to Japan and Finland. It wasn't because the climate changed. It wasn't some imported futuristic technology. It happened because of something that was already here and everyone was looking at it wrong. You see, the research team behind this proposal wasn't operating blindly. They had all the data, and they knew exactly how heavily the odds were stacked against them. They knew Xinjiang was buried deep in the heart of the mainland, over 3,000 kilometers away from the closest ocean. To put that into perspective, that is further than the distance from London to Moscow. They knew the unforgiving Taklamakan Desert dominated the landscape, an environment where water evaporates over 100 times faster than it rains. And they knew the ground beneath their feet was brutally saline, alkaline, with a pH level consistently soaring above 9. That is a harsh environment where most land plants can't even survive, let alone delicate marine fish. They knew every single scientific reason to walk away, and they still placed their bet. It was late 1998 when they initiated the very first trial, releasing their first batch of marine fish into experimental ponds. But they didn't have to wait long for a verdict. The initial mortality rate wasn't just bad, it was absolute. We're not talking about a 40% loss or a 60% setback. It was a near 100% wipeout. The kind of catastrophic failure that immediately puts an entire project on the chopping block. The fallout was instant. Several team members packed their bags and quit. Funding was immediately questioned, and outside experts issued a definitive warning. This environment is biologically impossible for marine life, and it is time to stop trying. Yet the core team stayed. And right here, amidst the wreckage of their first major disaster, they made their absolute biggest mistake. But it wasn't a technical error, and it wasn't a failure of engineering. It was a mistake in the actual question they were asking. So what was that wrong question? Right after that first devastating crash, the team huddled together and asked the most logical question you could possibly think of. How do we get enough suitable water for marine fish? It makes perfect sense, right? Ocean fish need ocean water. But the water in Xinjiang was a completely different beast, too salty, violently alkaline, and with a totally broken pH level. So the team set out to fix it using the two most obvious methods available from 1999 into the early 2000s. First, they tried diluting it with fresh water. But remember, this is a desert region. Fresh water is an absolute luxury out here. There simply wasn't enough of it to continuously replenish hundreds of massive breeding ponds at a commercial scale. So they pivoted to the second option, filtering out the excess salt and alkali. But running heavy water purification systems in a remote, isolated wasteland required an insane amount of energy and equipment. The operating costs quickly skyrocketed, becoming several times higher than the actual market value of the fish themselves. It was the financial equivalent of spending $100 just to clean a $10 fish, and the water chemistry was only half the nightmare. The desert weather was a constant trap. During the day, the sun beat down so hard, the ponds practically baked, throwing the fish into deadly thermal shock. At night, the temperature plummeted, completely stalling their growth. The team threw everything they had at the problem, installing specialized temperature control systems, building massive sunshades, and meticulously adjusting the stocking density in the ponds. Each tweak solved a tiny piece of the puzzle, but the bottom line didn't budge. The commercial survival rate remained flat. By 2003 and 2004, the entire project had slammed into a brutal dead end. It wasn't from a lack of effort, and it wasn't a lack of resources. They were doing everything completely right, but every single step forward just led them straight into another brick wall. But right when everyone was ready to pack up and call it quits, a member of the team looked at the problem from an entirely different angle. They stopped asking, "How do we change the water here?" And instead they asked a single question that changed everything. What is this water actually made of? When they finally ran a detailed chemical analysis on that useless, toxic desert water, they found something completely unexpected. It turns out the water in Xinjiang wasn't just ruined fresh water or industrial runoff. When they looked closely at the levels of calcium, magnesium, and potassium ions, they realized something crazy. The chemical makeup was naturally almost identical to actual ocean water. It was basically an incomplete version of the sea. Think about that for a second. For years they had been spending millions trying to filter out the salt and alkali. But the solution wasn't subtraction, it was addition. They didn't need to strip the water down or dilute it. They just needed to drop in a tiny amount of specific trace elements to perfectly mimic the natural balance of the ocean. It's like finding a jigsaw puzzle that's already 90% finished, and all you have to do is snap the last 3 pieces into place. And the best part, the cost of these 3 basic mineral ions was dirt cheap, literally several times lower than any complex filtration system they had tried before. This wasn't some futuristic multi-billion-dollar technology. It was just the power of asking the right question. When they ran the very first test using this newly adjusted water, the results blew everyone away. The fish survival rate didn't just tick up by a few percent, it absolutely skyrocketed. In just their very first breeding cycle, they went from total commercial failure to a fully operational thriving system. It worked so incredibly well that it triggered a massive wave of official patent applications. But as you can imagine, cracking the chemical code of the water was only the first hurdle. They had fixed the water inside the ponds, but they were still sitting in the middle of a brutal, unpredictable desert. And that brought up an even bigger, much more terrifying question. Could a massive open-air system like this actually run stably out here over time? Because once you crack the water problem, everything else changes. The remaining 2 nightmares, the freezing temperatures and the brutal weather, instantly shifted from a survival crisis into a technical problem. And there is a massive difference between the two. A survival crisis doesn't have a good solution but a technical problem. Technical problems can be engineered away. To handle those wild daily temperature swings, they engineered a semi-closed water circulation system. This system kept the ponds perfectly dialed in between 20 and 30 degrees Celsius, the absolute sweet spot for commercial marine life, to grow healthily, no matter how chaotic the weather got outside. It was actually the very first system of its kind to successfully operate at a commercial scale anywhere in inland China. But what about the blinding desert sandstorms? Well, they realized they couldn't physically block a massive storm. So instead of trying to stop the desert, they focused on buying time. The local meteorological bureau stepped in and set up a specialized 48-hour weather forecast network specifically for these aquaculture zones. The moment the sensors detected a sandstorm, a sudden heat wave or high winds heading their way, farmers got a heads up early enough to adjust water levels, shield the vulnerable fingerlings, and secure the circulation systems. They didn't eliminate the risk entirely, but they controlled it enough to ensure they wouldn't lose everything overnight. By 2017, this was no longer just a wild science experiment. The Chinese government officially stepped in to encourage private investment in aquaculture across the region, and Xinjiang became a proven model, ready to be cloned. And when your foundational chemistry is right, scaling up happens fast. By 2023, total seafood production across the province exploded to a staggering 184,000 tons, generating a massive $530 million in revenue. To put that into perspective, this landlocked desert chunk brought in the highest aquaculture numbers out of all 5 northwest provinces, a region that historically had absolutely zero tradition of raising fish. But here is the craziest part. The original goal back in 1998 was incredibly modest. Just grow enough local fish so the community didn't have to pay high prices to fly them in from the coast. What actually happened next was in nobody's blueprint. Back in 1998, that research team from Guangdong had a pretty basic goal. They just wanted to make Xinjiang less dependent on seafood shipped from thousands of kilometers away on the coast. Back then, that brutal cross-country transit made fish insanely expensive, and by the time it actually reached your dinner plate, it wasn't exactly fresh. But once their system was up and running, something completely unplanned happened. Because they were strictly controlling this artificial water environment, it was actually cleaner and more stable than the open ocean. Suddenly, the quality of their seafood blew past everyone's expectations. Today, salmon harvested in the middle of this desert is processed, packed and delivered to consumers in under 24 hours. That is actually faster than shipping it from China's actual coastline to the inland cities. People in major cities instantly notice the difference. In fact, by 2023, Online retail sales for Xinjiang seafood alone hit a staggering $54.2 million, a massive 16% jump from the year before. But the one thing absolutely nobody saw coming: desert pearls. Remember those brutal day-night temperature swings and the piercing sunlight intensity? The exact two reasons experts originally used to mock and reject the project. Well, it turns out those harsh conditions are exactly what makes pearl oysters thrive, forcing them to secrete incredibly thick, highly lustrous layers of exocure. In 2022, they launched the very first pearl project with 2 million seed oysters. By 2025, the first commercial batch is scheduled to hit the market. And the entire luxury industry is paying close attention because this unique desert geography might actually produce quality that completely outshines traditional ocean pearls. Look at the scale now. By 2024, there were 6 massive cooperatives and enterprises operating right here in the dry sands. They are managing over 414,000 individual fish across 8 different species, 305,000 blue crabs, and an insane 4.8 million shrimp, with 15 tons of shrimp hitting the market by the end of that year alone. And this isn't just a win for the scientists. Every single one of these operational farms boosts the annual income of about 30 local families by an extra $2,000 to $2,700. Just think about the sheer irony of this. The exact same toxic water nobody wanted, sitting on the exact same piece of barren land nobody would invest a single dollar into, is now exporting premium seafood to Japan and Finland, and churning out luxury pearls that could disrupt the traditional marine market. And all of this happened because the correct question was asked just 6 years after the first wrong one. Now let's be completely real for a second. This doesn't mean the desert magically changed. Xinjiang is still a desert. The rainfall hasn't increased, the temperatures still swing wildly, and those brutal sandstorms still tear through the region dozens of times a year. Absolutely nothing about the natural environment here has changed since 1998. What changed was the exact question people asked when they looked at it. Think about it. Before 2000, official land classification reports explicitly labeled this toxic saline alkaline water as completely unsuitable for agriculture. Today, it's the exact raw material used to mix cheap artificial seawater. That chaotic temperature gap that used to kill the fish, it's now the secret weapon that forces oysters to develop that incredibly thick, high-luster special pearl nacre. And a region that used to import literally every single fish its citizens consumed is now actively exporting premium seafood to the global market. You see, at its core, this isn't a story about breakthrough technology. It's a story about a shift in perspective. And that leaves us with a much bigger question, one that applies far beyond the borders of Xinjiang. How many other regions on this planet are currently written off as completely useless, not because they actually are, but simply because nobody has stepped up to ask the right question about them yet? Xinjiang doesn't answer that for us, but it proves beautiful and clear that it's a question worth asking.